Commissioner Gordon, Bane has escaped.
You keep hearing people say they don't have time, as if time is something handed out unevenly, like a privilege reserved for a select few. They speak about hours as if they're victims of some invisible authority that chose to deny them opportunity. Watch closely, and you'll notice something unsettling. The same person who claims they are drowning in obligations can scroll endlessly, consume content without purpose, and waste entire evenings in passive distraction. The truth sits quietly beneath the noise. Time was never missing. It was misallocated. Winners don't possess more hours. They possess clarity. They see time for what it really is, a currency that leaks if left unattended. Every minute unclaimed becomes someone else's gain. Every moment spent without intention strengthens the very life they claim to resent. You don't lose time in big dramatic ways. You lose it in small decisions repeated without awareness. One more episode, one more scroll, one more delay disguised as recovery. It never feels dangerous in the moment. It feels harmless. That is why it works. Winners understand something that most refuse to accept. You are always choosing, even when you pretend you are not. You are always building, even when you think you are standing still. And over time, those invisible choices stack into visible outcomes that no excuse can hide. There is a quiet brutality in how winners structure their days. It does not look glamorous. It rarely feels exciting. It is not driven by bursts of motivation or emotional highs. It is constructed with cold awareness. They understand that waiting to feel ready is the fastest way to remain stuck, so they move before the feeling arrives. They act while the resistance is still loud. Most people operate in reverse. They wait for energy, for the right mood, for the perfect moment that never quite shows up. Then they wonder why progress feels distant. Winners treat time like something that must be carved, not found. They wake up knowing exactly what needs to be done, not because they feel like it, but because it has already been decided. Decision fatigue is eliminated before the day even begins. There is no negotiation with themselves. There is no internal debate. Action becomes default. When you remove the emotional negotiation, you remove the delay. And when delay disappears, momentum begins to build. The difference is not discipline in the way people romanticize it. It is structure. It is removing the need to constantly decide. It is building a system where action becomes easier than avoidance. Excuses often sound intelligent. That is what makes them dangerous. They come dressed as logic, wrapped in justification that feels reasonable enough to believe. You hear phrases like, "I just need more time to prepare," or "I want to make sure everything is perfect before I start." These statements feel responsible. They feel mature. They feel like the voice of someone who is thinking carefully. Underneath, they serve a different purpose. They delay exposure. They protect the individual from facing the discomfort of imperfection. Winners see through this illusion. They understand that preparation without execution is a sophisticated form of avoidance. They move before everything is figured out. They accept that clarity often comes through action, not before it. Excuses are rarely about external limitations. They are about internal resistance. They are the mind's attempt to maintain comfort while pretending to pursue growth. And the longer you listen to them, the more convincing they become. Eventually, they stop sounding like excuses and start sounding like truth. That is when they become permanent. Consider how differently winners experience pressure. For most people, pressure is something to escape. It is uncomfortable, overwhelming, and often associated with stress and anxiety. So they avoid situations that demand more from them. They step back when things become difficult. They choose the path that feels manageable. Winners move toward pressure. They understand that growth hides inside it. They recognize that discomfort is not a warning sign, but a signal of expansion. When time feels tight, when expectations rise, when stakes increase, they don't retreat, they adjust. They prioritize. They cut what doesn't matter and double down on what does. This is where time gets created, not through magical hacks or secret strategies, but through ruthless prioritization. When everything feels urgent, most people freeze. Winners simplify. They ask a single question that changes everything. What actually matters right now? And then they focus only on that. Everything else becomes noise. Everything else can wait. This ability to filter reality is what allows them to operate at a level others cannot reach. Most people wake up and move through their day without ever asking the question that would disrupt everything. What do I actually want? That question carries weight. It demands honesty. It forces confrontation with the gap between how you live and how you could live, so it gets avoided. Society depends on that avoidance. When people do not define their direction, they become easy to guide. They follow paths already laid out, paths designed to keep systems running smoothly. Education channels them, work structures them, entertainment distracts them. None of it feels forced. It feels normal. That is the design. When you do not know what you want, anything offered to you feels like an option worth considering. You become reactive instead of intentional. You accept roles without questioning whether they align with you. And over time, that quiet acceptance turns into a life that feels unfamiliar. Not because something went wrong, but because nothing was ever chosen deliberately. There is a strange comfort in not knowing. Clarity demands responsibility. The moment you define what you want, you also define what you must give up. That creates tension. It removes the illusion that everything remains open forever. Most people would rather keep options alive than commit to one path. It feels safer. It feels like freedom. In reality, it is paralysis disguised as possibility. Society thrives on this state. Indecision keeps people consuming. It keeps them searching, comparing, hesitating. Entire industries are built around helping people figure things out, while subtly keeping them in that same loop. The longer you remain uncertain, the more you rely on external input. You look for guidance everywhere except within. And the more voices you listen to, the harder it becomes to hear your own. Winners break this loop early. They accept that clarity requires loss. They choose direction even when it closes doors, because they understand that movement in one direction beats standing still in all of them. Look at how identity is shaped. From a young age, people are given labels: student, employee, consumer. These labels come with expectations, behaviors, and predefined paths. When you grow within these structures without questioning them, your sense of self becomes tied to roles rather than intentions. You start to believe that who you are is defined by what you do, rather than what you want. That shift is subtle, yet powerful. It disconnects you from your internal compass. Society benefits from this disconnection. A person who defines themselves by roles is easier to manage than someone who defines themselves by purpose. Roles can be assigned, adjusted, replaced. Purpose demands alignment. It resists misdirection. When you do not know what you want, you adopt whatever identity fits your current environment. You become adaptable in a way that serves others more than yourself. And while adaptability can be valuable, without direction it turns into drift. You move, but not toward anything meaningful. Distraction plays a central role in maintaining this system. Modern life offers endless ways to occupy attention. Content, notifications, constant stimulation. These are not inherently harmful, yet their cumulative effect is powerful. They reduce the space required for reflection. When your mind is always engaged with something external, it never turns inward. You never sit long enough with your own thoughts to uncover what you actually want. Silence becomes uncomfortable. Stillness feels unfamiliar, so you avoid it. Society reinforces this pattern by rewarding constant engagement. Being busy is praised. Being still is questioned. Yet clarity is born in stillness. It requires space. It requires time without input. Winners create that space intentionally. They disconnect, not to escape, but to understand. They allow boredom to surface, because beneath it lies insight. Most people never reach that point. They remain on the surface, moving from one distraction to another, never realizing that the answers they seek require them to stop looking outward. Another layer to this is fear. Knowing what you want exposes you. It removes excuses. If you say you want something specific, you can no longer hide behind uncertainty. You either move toward it or you accept that you are choosing not to. That level of accountability is uncomfortable. It forces you to face your own inaction. Society softens this discomfort by normalizing vagueness. Phrases like, "I am still figuring things out," or "I will see where life takes me," sound acceptable. They carry no urgency. They allow time to pass without pressure. Winners reject this comfort. They choose clarity even when it creates pressure, because pressure reveals truth. It shows you where you hesitate, where you doubt, where you avoid. And once you see that clearly, you have the chance to act differently. Fear does not disappear. It becomes visible, and visibility changes everything. Consider how goals are often borrowed rather than created. Many people pursue things because they were told those things matter. A certain job, a certain lifestyle, a certain image of success. These goals feel valid because they are widely accepted. Yet when pursued without personal alignment, they lead to emptiness. You achieve what you thought you wanted, only to realize it does not satisfy you. Society relies on these borrowed goals. They keep people moving in predictable ways. They maintain order. They sustain systems. Winners question everything. They do not assume that common goals are meaningful to them. They define success on their own terms. This process is not immediate. It requires experimentation. It requires failure. It requires stepping away from expectations and observing what actually resonates. Most people avoid this process because it is uncertain. It lacks guarantees. Yet without it, you spend your life chasing outcomes that were never yours to begin with. Time plays a silent role in all of this. When you do not know what you want, time feels abundant. You assume you can figure it out later. You postpone decisions. You delay commitment. Years pass quietly. The urgency never arrives because nothing forces it. Society encourages this delay by presenting life as something that unfolds naturally. Yet time does not pause, it accumulates. And the longer you remain unclear, the harder it becomes to shift direction. Responsibilities increase. Habits solidify. Paths become harder to leave. Winners understand this early. They treat clarity as something that cannot be postponed indefinitely. They know that every year without direction is a year invested in the wrong one. This awareness creates urgency, not panic, but focus. It pushes them to decide, to act, to adjust, because waiting does not simplify the process, it complicates it. There is also a social cost to clarity. When you define what you want, you separate from those who have not. Your choices may not align with theirs. Your priorities may look different. This creates distance. Most people avoid this by staying within the collective uncertainty. It feels safer to move with the group than to step away from it. Society reinforces this by valuing conformity. It rewards those who follow expected paths. It questions those who deviate. Winners accept this cost. They understand that alignment requires separation. They do not seek approval from those who are unclear about their own direction. They focus on building a life that reflects their choices, not others' expectations. This creates a different kind of confidence, one that does not rely on validation, one that comes from knowing why you are doing what you are doing. Clarity is not a one-time event. It evolves. What you want at one stage of life may change. Society uses this as an argument for staying uncertain. It suggests that since things change, there is no point in deciding. Winners see it differently. They treat clarity as a continuous process. They make decisions based on current understanding, then adjust as they grow. This creates momentum. It allows them to move forward without waiting for perfect certainty. Most people wait for a final answer. That answer does not exist. Life is dynamic. Direction must be flexible. The key difference lies in movement. Winners move with clarity, even if temporary. Others remain still, waiting for clarity to become permanent. And in that waiting, they lose time. There is a hidden power in knowing what you want. It simplifies everything. Decisions become easier. Distractions lose their appeal. Opportunities can be evaluated quickly. Without clarity, everything competes for your attention. With clarity, most things become irrelevant. Society does not emphasize this power because it reduces consumption. A clear individual does not chase every trend, does not seek constant input, does not rely on external validation. They operate with focus. That focus makes them less predictable, less controllable. Winners embrace this. They build their lives around a few meaningful priorities. They protect their time. They filter their environment. And over time, this creates a level of progress that seems disproportionate. It is not magic, it is alignment. At the center of it all lies a quiet truth that many avoid. Society does not force you to stay unclear. It simply makes it easy. The responsibility still belongs to you. You can continue moving through life reacting to what is presented, or you can pause and define what matters. That pause is where everything shifts. It may feel uncomfortable. It may disrupt what you have built so far. Yet it gives you something most people never experience: direction. And once you have that, the world looks different. Opportunities change. Decisions sharpen. Time becomes valuable in a way it never was before. The system continues to run the same way. The difference is that you no longer move through it unconsciously. You move through it with intent. You wake up inside a structure long before you realize you had the option to build your own. The alarm rings at a time you did not choose with intention. The path ahead feels familiar, almost automatic. You follow it because it is already there. That is how it begins. Not with a dramatic loss of control, but with quiet acceptance. Someone else decided what a normal day looks like, and you stepped into it without resistance. Over time, repetition turns into identity. You start to believe this rhythm belongs to you. You defend it. You justify it. Yet beneath that surface lies an uncomfortable truth. You never designed it. You inherited it. And what you inherit without questioning slowly shapes what you become. Structure removes uncertainty, and uncertainty scares people more than limitation. So they accept pre-built routines in exchange for predictability. That exchange feels safe. It feels responsible. Yet it comes at a cost that is rarely acknowledged. The cost of never discovering what your own structure could have been. A routine created by others carries invisible priorities. It is not neutral. It is built to serve a system, a business, a framework that benefits from consistency and predictability. When you adopt that routine without reflection, you align your energy with goals that may not be yours. You wake, work, rest, repeat, all within a loop designed for efficiency rather than fulfillment. The danger lies in how seamless it feels. There is no immediate friction, no obvious resistance. That is what makes it effective. You do not feel controlled. You feel organized. You do not feel restricted. You feel productive. Yet productivity toward the wrong direction compounds just as effectively as productivity toward the right one. Winners understand that routine is not about discipline alone. It is about alignment. They question what their days are building. They examine where their time is going. And if the answer does not reflect their own intention, they rebuild from the ground up. That process feels uncomfortable. It removes the comfort of predictability. It replaces it with responsibility. And that responsibility is what most people avoid. Purpose operates in a similar way, yet it cuts deeper. When you do not define why you are doing something, you borrow reasons from your environment. You work because that is what people do. You chase status because that is what is valued. You pursue milestones because they are recognized. These borrowed purposes create movement, yet they do not create meaning. You can spend years achieving goals that were never yours, only to realize the emptiness after reaching them. Society benefits from this borrowed purpose. It keeps people engaged, striving, contributing without questioning the direction. Winners step back and ask a different question. Why does this matter to me? That question disrupts everything. It removes borrowed narratives. It exposes motivations that were never examined. And once you see that clearly, it becomes difficult to continue blindly. You either redefine your purpose or accept that you are living someone else's version of success. Both paths require honesty. Most choose comfort. Careers often follow the same pattern of assignment rather than creation. You are guided towards certain fields, influenced by expectations, shaped by what is considered practical. Over time, these influences become decisions. You tell yourself you chose this path. Yet, if you trace it back, you will often find that it was suggested, encouraged, normalized long before you fully understood it. That does not make it wrong. It makes it unexamined. The difference matters. A career built intentionally feels different from one adopted passively. One carries direction. The other carries momentum without clarity. Society needs people to fill roles. It needs stability. It needs predictability. That is why certain paths are emphasized. Winners do not reject this outright. They question it. They explore alternatives. They test different directions. They take ownership of the path instead of inheriting it. This creates uncertainty. It creates risk. Yet it also creates the possibility of alignment. And alignment changes the entire experience of work. Uncertainty sits at the center of all this. It is the force that pushes people toward pre-built structures. Not knowing what to do, where to go, or who to become creates discomfort that most cannot tolerate for long. So they look for something ready-made, something that offers direction without requiring deep reflection. Society provides exactly that. Clear paths, defined steps, recognized outcomes. These remove uncertainty quickly. They replace it with structure. That transition feels like progress. It feels like moving forward. Yet movement without intention can take you far from where you would have chosen to go. Winners develop a different relationship with uncertainty. They do not rush to eliminate it. They sit with it. They explore it. They allow it to exist long enough for clarity to emerge from within rather than being imposed from outside. This requires patience. It requires tolerance for discomfort. It requires resisting the urge to fill the void immediately. That resistance is rare. That is why most never discover their own direction. Look at how easily people adopt habits that were never consciously chosen. Eating patterns, sleep schedules, work rhythms, even the way they spend their free time. These patterns are absorbed from surroundings. Family, culture, workplace, social circles. Over time, they become automatic. You stop questioning them because they feel normal. Yet normal does not mean optimal. It means common, and common patterns produce common outcomes. Winners examine these patterns closely. They identify which ones serve them and which ones do not. Then they make adjustments. Not dramatic changes all at once, but deliberate shifts over time. They replace inherited habits with intentional ones. This process creates friction. It disrupts comfort. It separates them from what feels familiar. Yet it also creates control. And control over daily actions compounds into control over long-term outcomes. Without that, you remain shaped by whatever environment you happen to be in. There is also a subtle pressure to conform that reinforces this entire system. When you follow a path that others recognize, you receive validation. Approval comes easily. You are seen as responsible, stable, on track. When you step outside of that, the response changes. Doubt appears. Questions arise. People project their own fears onto your choices. This social feedback loop keeps many within assigned structures.